Ladies and gentlemen, this is Lion's Den with another news and commentary. Now, a lot of people don't know about this story. I know a lot of black women that loves and adores um, Kamala Harris. But here's the situation. Mitrice Richardson, and nobody talks about her story. And it pops up on my social media, and I would give a shout out to the current report. And and this article came out on August 19th, 2020, which is 4 years ago. Now, all of this is starting to come out of the Mitrice Richardson investigation, and it says in the title, as you can see, that of course it says the current report contributor Dr. Rhonda Hampton outlines Kamala Harris's role in the investigation against the LASD, which is the Sheriff's Department, in the death of Mitrice Richardson after she was released from the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Station on September 17, 2009. Under suspicious circumstances, Richardson was experiencing a mental health episode, which she was booked for failure to pay an innkeeper and possessing less than an ounce of marijuana. Now, again, this is from Dr. Rhonda Hamilton, and this is what the article says. It says, as we approach one of the most seemingly contentious presidential elections in recent times, the nation is faced with a making of a historic decision, a vote for Joe Biden. Now, that was 2020. So here's what happened with the Mitrice Richardson investigation. It says in September of 2009, Mitrice Richardson would suffer a mental health crisis at Jeffrey's restaurant in Malibu, California, when the staff at the restaurant called the local sheriff's department to come and pick her up because she was acting crazy. While the Welfare and Institutional Code 5150 required that Mitrice Richardson be evaluated by a mental health professional, the arresting officer decided to take her to jail instead for reasons unknown. She was never provided a psychiatric evaluation for her unusual behaviors at the restaurant, but instead was released from the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff's Station in the dead of the night with no money, no car, no means of caring for herself, and in a compromised mental state. Her partially mummified naked skeletal remains was discovered approximately 11 months later, when it was no surprise that the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's own investigation of themselves determined that there was no wrongdoing in the handling of Mitrice Richardson's death and disappearance that remained many unanswered questions. One, why was she arrested? Two, why was she not taken for a psychiatric evaluation, even when the arresting officer called her ditzy? Three, why were her car keys, phone, and purse not taken with her to the station? Four, why was her car towed? Five, why did the captain of the station lie about the existence of the video? Six, why more than 10 years later will the LASD not release the video of her at the station? And seven, it's supposed to be five, but really seven, why did the LASD detectives remove her body from the site where her remains were discovered against the orders of the coroner? See, ladies and gentlemen, these questions remaining unanswered. And again, they talking about Kamala Harris and the sisterhood, and she's a black woman. But ladies and gentlemen, that's for all the black women who support Kamala Harris, who's in the sorority like the AKAs, the Sigma Gamma Rho's, the Delta Sigma Thetas. I want you to do research of what happened with Mitrice Richardson, because again, if y'all for the sisterhood, y'all need to take a interest in this case. So let's continue. So on the right where they had, that's Dr. Rhonda Hamilton who did the story. So what continue to say is it was these and many more questions which led to my request that the Attorney General at that time, Kamala Harris, investigated the case of Mitrice Richardson. A complaint which was submitted on October 5th, 2015, contained over 500 pages of exhibits highlighting potential violations of law enforcement policy and possible criminal acts on the part of the LA County Sheriff's Department. Approximately 6 weeks later, on November 16, 2015, a letter received from the Office of Attorney General stated that after carefully evaluation, my inquiry warranted no formal action and that the records you provided do not create a reasonable interference in any actions of the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department or its employees violated the law. That it took a mere 6 weeks to investigate potential evidence containing in more than 500 pages of documents led me to conclude that the investigation was disingenuous and that Harris' relationship with former Sheriff John McDonnell may have impacted her decision to formulate the opinion that no part of the handling of Mitrice Richardson case warranted of any punitive action. So in other words, the deputy told during that time Attorney General Kamala Harris that, well, there's no wrongdoing. We don't find anything wrong to what happened to the officers that was responsible for Mitrice, Richardson and her, the disappearance of her and whatnot. But see, now Kamala Harris has a lot of explaining to do because now, in other words, she ignored the investigation of what happened to this young lady. So the article continues to say, with the devastating news, the Office of Attorney General did not find evidence to support any action being taken against the LASD. I contacted Mitrice Richardson's father, Michael Richardson, who penned another letter asking for a reconsideration of Mitrice Richardson case on December 15, 2015, and in February of 2016. Kamala Harris agreed to reconsider the investigation. While it was never clear as to why she agreed to reconsider a Mitrice Richardson case, after claiming that her office had carefully evaluated my documents, which were mailed back to me, it is speculated that after local news outlets began to publicly news articles about her decision that there was no wrongdoing on the part of any officer, she began to get backlash from communities in Southern California. The backlash was problematic as she was beginning her campaign for the Senate race. The thought that Kamala Harris only agreed to reconsideration of Mitrice Richardson case as a result of her bid for the Senate was heightened by the fact that during her bid for the Senate, she actually touted Mitrice Richardson case on her Wikipedia page as one of her accomplishments. Now, check this out. A few weeks prior to her announcement as Joe Biden's pick for VP, and that's in 2020, Mitrice Richardson case was scrubbed from Kamala Harris's wiki page as if Mitrice Richardson has never existed. So she taking the credit of the Mitrice, Richardson investigation, but then when she became Joe Biden's running mate in 2020, they decided to scrub the case completely, and Mitrice Richardson had never been talked and never been, talked about. Interesting. So let's finish this article. It says, Mr. Richardson and I had no real confidence that there would be any earnest investigation and joked that most likely she would drag out the investigation until after her run for Senate was over, and then again announced that there was no wrongdoing on the part of the LASD. On December 16, 2016, 10 months after she reconsidered the investigation of Mitrice Richardson's case, and about 6 weeks after she won her bid for Senate on November 9, 2016, she cleared the LASD of any wrongdoing, and no one was surprised. There are those who are not pleased with me speaking out about Mrs. Harris and her actions while she was the Attorney General of California for fear that it may cost a lot of votes. I have been speaking out against Mrs. Harris and her actions since 2015, and it is not going to change now. I have power over anyone's vote. I am not a person of any influence. I do not have a national platform with which to share Mitrice Richardson's story. But what I am is one individual impacted by a tragedy that Kamala Harris had the opportunity to correct, and she chose otherwise. Now, there's some stories, and that is the end of the article, and shouts out on the current report on this. This has been released on 2020 during Joe Biden's run for president, and she basically was picked as his vice president, as his VP, right? So Kamala Harris knew about the Mitrice Richardson investigation, and unfortunately, she ignored this story. She could have pursued criminal charges against these officers that was involved in the Mitrice Richardson investigation. But she chose not to do that because of the relationship of the sheriff. And she was the attorney general at that time. Now, I agree with the person who did this article. I'm not telling you guys to not vote for Kamala Harris. I will never do that. That is your choice. That is your decision. But when we hear from people from social media, from people that's reporting that Kamala Harris is a black woman, we need to protect the black woman, and then we've been hearing that she attends and graduated from Howard University, that she is an AKA and stuff like that, and even though everybody else, including myself included, proven that she is not a black woman, she is an Indian descent, and then you talk about the sisterhood. She could have done what she could have done about the Mitrice Richardson investigation long time ago. But again, she ignored the story, or she ignored, people's cry about taking down the officers who were involved in this case. So again, y'all can talk about Kamala Harris being a black woman all you want to, whatever. But the problem is in the black community, I'm not saying all, but some of us, is that we don't do enough research about Kamala Harris and her, and what she stands for. And the problem is that you talk about the sisterhood, protect black women, blah, blah, blah. Mitrice Richardson, as you know, she was a black woman. And Kamala Harris should have done something to at least seek justice in what happened to Mitrice Richardson. But she didn't do that. She listened to, and that's why a lot of people call her the top cop of California. Because the thing of it is that she protects officers, then do what's right as Attorney General and to seek justice for the people that, that basically deserves justice. But see, how should I know? I'm just a YouTuber, right? I'm just, just talking, right? And the facts are the facts. And I told you before, when she was Senate of California, during that time when she was running for Senate of California, she never talked about the Mitrice Richardson case. At first, she wanted to reconsider the case until she became Joe Biden's running mate, in 2020. And again, like I said before, she chose not to even talk about the Mitrice Richardson case. Why? Explain what really happened to Mitrice Richardson. How did she disappear? What did the deputies do to her at that time? But yet you're supposed to be Attorney General, you're supposed to be fair and balanced, and then now you don't want to talk about the Mitrice Richardson investigation? Make it make sense. And now she's running for president now. And so far, she still do not want to talk about the Mitrice Richardson case. Acting like, whatever, it is what it is, And again, it proved that, again, you have Kamala Harris, just like she did with locking up all the black men, majority of the black men in the state of California for no reason. But this story about Mitrice Richardson, she refused to even help her family or explain to her family what really happened to their daughter. Make it make sense. Y'all let me know what you think about this in the comments.